An admission. I struggled with this theme for several reasons. Reason number one is that for somebody directionally challenged as me, forward means anywhere. and second, in a season of Ebola, its tragedy and its hysteria, I'm less inclined to want to inspire, but more, there's a kind of need to go around with a whip, just whipping up people, just for the sake of it, So I don't know what rousing rah-rah I can provide you for the next 18 minutes, but what I can offer you, what we can share, what we can explore are words. We can do words, I thought. A word of the season. We'll do a couple of words, but word of the season, first word of the season, Ebola. The other day, one of my friends was laughing over the alacrity with which the world surrendered the rising African narrative to Ebola Africa. Gone, gone is the technologically edgy, wealth-generating Afro archetype. Back, back is Quds and the heart of darkness. And oh bliss, the horror, the horror. A certain news service, poor dears, again reduced the world's second largest continent to a single country. And helped turn its people into a virus, given the name of an innocent African river. And the first reaction from our friends in the East, our new best friends, South Korean Airlines stopped its flights into the continent, and a restaurant in Seoul, bless their hearts, put up an emblematic sign. We do not serve Africans. Please do not come. Yet the Ebola pandemic, this really sorrowful crucible, offers our Africa a profound gift. It commands us to face the force of Africa's crisis of meaning. It demands that we ask again, what does Africa mean for Africa, before we bother with what Africa means for the world? Thank you. My friends, where do we go from here? The correct answer, I'm convinced, is not a forward march into some shapeless horizon, but an intentional journey inward. I'm not talking about sitting under a baobab tree and humming African cultural equivalents of Om. I mean literally looking within, engaging hearts and memories with our senses and assorted tools, listening for deeper words. As a core value, relationality has served to cohere our African being in and with the world. Some more words for you. Ubinadamu, Ubuntu, the terms that encompass key African raison d'etre. So, to look within is perhaps to ask new questions, to seek out and hear from others who live out hidden African facets. Do we intend to uncover what Africa viscerally means for Africa today? Then we must re-encounter our archetypes. Archetypes, I repeat. Those world and word carriers of energizing values and ideals, which we so desperately need to repopulate meaning. As Binyavanga has said before, we are fortunate in our complexity and diversity. There are always vast, hidden, and intricate worlds to uncover. I should say, recover. One place to go, the peripheries, the edges. To find again the ones we ourselves have also rendered invisible in the current structure of our retelling, of our self-telling. Those whose life ways are still linked to a pulsing Africa timelessness, who live the truth of memories as a periscope into the future. Let me illustrate the point. I was looking for a metaphor, a face of Africa sculpted by a forward gaze, whichever direction it turns. Here are eyes that look up and into and in between time, within and beyond ocean horizons, who also evokes from within maps of assorted seas with rare words. His name is Haji Gora Haji. He lives in Zanzibar, He is from Tumbatu Island. He is over 80 years old. Before the onset of Islam, his forebears hosted Persians seeking political asylum. He told me this. His people called themselves Shirazi before the idiom of Africa gained common usage on the continent. Before they were Africans, they were Shirazi. Another word for you, archetype. I've said it before. Haji Gora Haji is an archetypal old man of the sea. His skin is a worn map, a cartography of hard-gained knowledge. His silences are as profound as the mysteries of the sea he understands. A man of African interstices, seafarer, navigator, artist, trader, porter, thinker, poet, minstrel, father, grandfather, African, Indian Ocean citizen. He personifies the secret but rich lives of those given no space in the current architecture of our chatter. I went to see him early this year with questions about the East African ocean imagination, but that's another story. Mzee Haji Gora had things to say. I listened. Here's a short version of thoughts reaped from his memory. 1. The geography of the imagination is boundaryless. 2. Lived memories are platforms on which we stand to glimpse the shape of future destinations. 3. The lines between sky, land, and sea blur. It's a matter of perspective. If we wanted, we could see limitlessness. 4. Human maps are mere suggestions. Routes are only born out of direct experiences of the sea. You are looking for a map? Haji Gora asked me. The sea is the map. 5. You create the environment out of which your desired destination can emerge. I'm talking to you about words. I'm talking to you about world making, because when you seek a story, that's what you do. It's the same as world giving. Archetypal presences like Haji Gora deliver to us the gift of calling worlds into being. Worlds with principles, values, and ideals. The place where we shape existence, meaning, and choice. Where we create plot lines. Who gets to play hero? Who are villain, antagonist, and sacrificial victim? Stories sold as lives, friends. This is where the clash of worlds, often unseen, unfold. These are battles for narrative dominance, played out in individual and collective imaginations, and given form and voice through society and its media. It acquires champions. It becomes a lifestyle. Rules turn intentions into reality. Nations move army across worlds to sustain the infrastructure of their world story. Humans sacrifice themselves and others to feed the archetypes through which they explain their purpose. Historical events of existential import provide an arena for narratives to compete. Take the Ebola crisis. Take its survivors. In myth worlds, which is what world making is about, they are neither survivors nor victims. These are characters who have wrestled down death, been wounded by it, and won. They are heroes. Like the Maasai Moran who wrestled death contained in the archetype of a maned lion. These are victors. These are our Moran who carry the elixir of life in their blood, a force that exorcises a specific evil. We have not honored our fallen. We should have feted these heroes and heroines of Africa who emerged from the inferno of Ebola. We ought to have safeguarded their knowledge so painfully gained. We ought to have anointed them as prophets. So far, what has our bungling, bumbling continent done to the ones we have called Ebola victims? Nothing. Meanwhile, outsiders are onto them. Outsiders who understand their identities as superheroes, whose bodies carry new wisdom for medicine, war, and life. While we lurch about, certain persons, the usual suspects, have unleashed a whiny, begging dirge about African Christmases, reiterating the archetype of Africans as mute, sacrificial victims in need of self-appointed messiahs. We complete you, they imply, in a song that erases the voices of heroic African journeyers whose names we too have obliterated. So where is forward? Is it in the Africa rising cauldron, the hardware of which clangs with impressive noise? Everything a frontier, agriculture, frontier, economics, frontier, technology, frontier, energy, frontier. The African potential is now in full unlocked position. In the streets of our capital, a new beastie lurks, the corporate anthropologist studying the habits of Africans, pie charts and cool numbers, as plentiful as the already crumbling Chinese roads crisscrossing our African landscapes. Elements for a story world waiting to be imagined into being. Quite frankly for me, I don't care about the numbers, but the one number that matters most for me is the 700 million, the under 25s, an African generational phenomenon in a world that is suffering a youth deficit. The Swahili word, here's another word for you, for an impending storm with an apocalyptic tinge is dhoruba. It's an acknowledgement. It does not predict the direction of the deluge. My friends from the tip of that tempest seem to be citizens of another Africa anyway. Technologically savvy, they're clear-eyed about the elders who have mortgaged their past. They hold few illusions about humanity, yet they summon great dreams around which they innovate. Startlingly, for some of them, suicide bomber is a career option. Here's how one of them outlined things to me. This is Joe Kobuthi, philosopher, policy analyst, pastor, 25 years old. Our generation, he says, is smarter, faster, cannier, and more connected than you are. Whatever you imagine, we have thought it already. Whatever you think is exceptional is our normal. What shocks you is our real. What can you tell us that we don't already know? What visions can you give that we have not already seen and lived? Here is the flood. It's coming. But with Joe, I will ask you now, does Africa have an enduring imagination infrastructure to carry the weight of its unprecedented future? Where is forward for you? Can it consume the world already at its doors, armed with alternate plans for its future? More precisely, in this season of historical opportunity, what does Africa mean for Africa? Know thyself, the oracle at Delphi says. But I ask these questions of you, Africa's daring and brave lovers. I use that word deliberately in the sense of those who embrace Africa's immensity, beauty, splendor, achievements, diversity, but also its paradoxes, contradictions, and sufferings with equal tenderness, truth, wonder, love, and passion. You, Africa's lovers, what meaning do you give to this season of extraordinary happenings? What faces and voices shape your hearing? What fears and temptations trip you up? What is your knowledge of Africa's actual yearnings? Where do the boundaries of Africa's space, place, and ideas start and end for you and in you? What is your role? How will you exorcise our particular demons? Do you even give a damn? And what does it mean to you that Africa's fastest growing population is from a China where the ideogram for Africa translates into not state, notness? We share the fate of Chinese ghosts. How do you language African beingness then? In such realities, what does Africa mean for you? One day in 2009, I spent the night in the wilderness of Laikipia, Kenya, when suddenly from out of the darkness, the thick darkness, a lion roared once, and everything in the universe dissolved into an epiphanic moment that condensed all rules of existence, including, if you want, the certainty of which way was forward. No other world but ours can lay claim to this grace. No other can own the archetype of a dark night's lion. It is ours. Close your eyes. Do you hear it? Friends, we are in need of another lexicon to explain us to ourselves, to frame our mythological sensibilities, our histories, and all the things of African presences, dissipating in mists overwhelmed by alien cacophonies. We need your words, because you and I know that there are no horizons where memories that generate futures are crushed, lost, and unheard. We need other words because of the time in which we find ourselves. The fact that, for example, if 60% of the world's arable land is African, it means that the baton for dominance in core areas of global needs is within our grasp. Yet we do not yet have a summoning story to incarnate the meaning of this for ourselves. Why? So then you trustees, what is your word, your visual, your sound for a lexicon to transmit the profound and complex being and destiny of a splendid, grand continent and its people? A lexicon that can also electrify a fear-filled, weary, war-lusting, death-entranced planet at crossroads that it cannot transfigure. What sensations from Africa moments haunt you? Speak them out, please. If we are to deep story our voyaging and sculpt the forward that is the command of an archetype's roar, those words, urgently, desperately, and quickly, now, because as sure as breath, little of what floats around today summons any meaning. Those words, your words, to be savored, sang, and passed down minutes, months, and years to other lovers of our home. Words that are dear to others like them to become a colossal, intricate, timeless vessel through which our continents, present, past, and future, can, among other things, reverberate with a potent relief of its own splendid voice. Close your eyes. Do you hear it? Thank you.